Nice enough to stay along with us via Skype, Democratic strategist Bridget Todd, also checking in from the National Republican Congressional Committee in Washington, D.C., Republican National Press Secretary for the NRCC, Daniel Scarpinato. We welcome you back in. To you first, Bridget. How do you respond to the call for a special prosecutor from Senator Ted Cruz?
I think there are certainly, I'll be the first person to admit that I think that there are things that look like, things that we should be asking questions about, and I think it's good that those questions are being asked. However, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no evidence of, wrongdoings in terms of these emails being missing. There's speculation. I think it looks a certain way. But I think that to commit all of this money and time, taxpayer money, might I add, into getting a special prosecutor, I just don't know if it's the right step, considering there's no hard evidence that these emails, their whereabouts proves anything.
Well, that's Bridget. We appreciate your perspective. I would imagine Daniel has a little different take on things. Daniel, give us your view.
I do. I mean, for goodness sake, they committed taxpayer resources to targeting people based on their politics. I think maybe we could spend some taxpayer dollars to find out what really happened. I think the IRS should hold itself to the same standard that it holds Americans to. I'm pretty sure that if I lost my shoebox full of receipts and told Lois Lerner I couldn't file my taxes, that wouldn't fly. So I don't really understand how it flies that they could just lose emails in this day and age when it doesn't seem any of us can get rid of emails even if we want to. So I think there are a lot of questions here. I think this is very sketchy. And I think people want to know the truth. Once upon a time, President Obama said he was angry about this situation. I don't know if he really was, because it doesn't seem like there's really a serious effort to find out what really happened here. And I think that's a shame.
Well, Eric Holder said something similar as well. And Daniel, I wanted to ask you a question going back to this issue of Iraq real quick, because what the NRCC does is try to get folks elected to Congress here. And as we look at this issue of Iraq, our viewership and what folks are writing into us is split. But a lot of folks favor a non-invasive approach to Iraq, maybe staying out of that, not getting back involved here. Politically speaking, what do you think is the more viable strategy for candidates who are running in contested elections this November to help win their elections? Do you think it's advocating for more action in Iraq like John McCain and some other members of the Republican Party do, or maybe take the stance that Rand Paul is taking when we should let things settle down a little bit and maybe take more measured of approach?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always think with these issues, people really need to do what's in their heart and what they believe. And I think that the main thing that we're seeing is on this issue and really across the board, Americans feel like there is not a check and balance in Washington on this president, and I think that's part of why you see the Senate in play right now. And I think what I've encouraged candidates to do is talk about how they're going to be a check and a balance. I think everything you're talking about what do we do now, the requests that the president is making for funds to arm the Syrian rebels, all of that should be vetted and debated in the light of day in open hearings, and I think we should have this debate. And I don't think that the Republican Party speaks with one voice, but I think you're going to see differences, based on what district people are running in and what their view of foreign policy is. But I think everyone's in agreement that really the president didn't follow the advice of the military commanders, and unfortunately we're in a mess now, and there are some differences of opinion of how do we get out of it.
Well, John raised the specter of the midterm elections and the campaign in which we find ourselves right now for 1/3 of the United States Senate and all 435 seats in the Congress of the United States. And along those lines, Bridget, not so much with the looming campaign, but in campaigns past, Wolf Blitzer of CNN sat down yesterday with John Koskinen, the current IRS commissioner, and raised the fact that that Commissioner Koskinen has given a whole lot of contributions over the years in the thousands of dollars to Democratic causes and candidates. Now, it's a free country, but in retrospect, when you see someone who is such a political partisan in terms of a pattern of giving, Is that the right person to have in charge of the IRS, or does that not create at least a suspicion that the IRS and the White House are seeking a political solution?
Listen, as I said before, I think it definitely creates that illusion, creates that suspicion. I wouldn't blame anybody for thinking that, because I do think it's easy to sort of make it seem that way. However, I just think that if there's no hard evidence of anything, any kind of wrongdoing going on, I think we have to go by that. I think it's good to be skeptical of these things. I think it's good to ask questions. And I think certainly, you want to think about, partisanship and sort of where the money's going. But I just don't think that we should take those allegations unless there's hard evidence or a smoking gun, is anything other than questions that need to be raised.
Well, that is the perception that you offer, Bridget, but as we know in politics, perception can become reality. Now, we want to take a look at some poll numbers that have come out. The latest Fox News poll, 76% of respondents believe the emails from the account of Lois Lerner were deliberately destroyed. 12% said they were destroyed accidentally, and another 12% are unsure. Daniel Scarpinato, when you see these results, I would imagine both politically and in terms of institutional checks and balances, House Republicans, Senate Republicans will continue to try to put the pressure on the administration and get some answers.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those situations where not only is this good politics, but this is also just a real scandal. I mean, the fact that I'm not really sure, with all due respect to Bridget, what she's saying, that there's no evidence. I mean, we know that the IRS targeted conservative groups. The press has reported on that. That is an objective fact, and the president himself has admitted that when this whole issue first percolated. So that's not in question, and so this is a scandal. I think it could be one of the most outrageous scandals of our generation. The fact that our government would target people based on their politics goes against everything that America is about, and I think that's why Americans are so outraged. It's not just Republicans or conservatives who are outraged. I know Democrats who are very upset about this, because if this was a Republican administration and this is the kind of thing that we decide is acceptable in our country, then this could turn around on them. And I don't think any of us believe that that's right.
Well, Bridget, there is a situation. We noted earlier today the passing announced of former Republican Senator Howard Baker of Tennessee. And we remember from history his role in the Watergate hearings in the United States Senate, asking of a president of his own party, what did the president know and when did he know it? Now, just in terms of these questions arising about the Internal Revenue Service and the implications from all Americans, do you expect anyone in the Democratic Party to come forward in the fashion that Republican Howard Baker did earlier in our history?
I think that remains to be seen. I think that I agree that the IRS targeted groups with Tea Party in the name, Patriot in the name, but they also targeted progressive groups. I think the larger question is sort of why do these groups get tax exempt status in the first place, right? Like, I think that, again, I think these are questions that definitely need to be asked, and I'm happy that folks are raising them. But, the question of whether or not someone from, a Democrat is going to come out and ask the tough questions, I think we've seen some of that already. I don't think that no Democrats have expressed outrage by this at all.
All right, Bridget, appreciate your take. Daniel, very quickly, less than a minute left. We saw that Treasury was promulgating new regulations, a fancy way to say, hey, we got caught, so let's change the regulations on nonprofits and political organizations. What do you think is going to happen in this, Daniel, in 30 seconds that remain?
I don't know, but I mean, and to Bridget's point, the fact is, like, she may not like that these groups get tax exempt status, but they do. So change the law if you don't like it. I think what we've seen with this president, with this administration, is he just doesn't really believe in following the law. And that's really the root of this and everything else we've been talking about, and it's a shame.
Well, we will have to leave it there. Daniel Scarpinato of the NRCC, Bridget Todd, the Democratic consultant. Thanks for Skyping in. John, whole lot of talk continues leading up to the midterms.
Yeah, an interesting take from those folks on how this is all going to apply to 2014 and ahead 2016 as well.
That's why you need to stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.